Hello, we're here at Torquay Museum today, and I'm here, my name's Carol, and we're here with singer-songwriter and legendary 10 Seconds founder member, Ian Churchward. So Ian, you were born in Exeter.
That's right.
And your family then moved to Shippey in Torquay, and you went to school?
Yeah, I started off at the infant school in Torbay, then Churchward Valley Junior School, and then I went to Torquay Boys Grammar School. I think I was very lucky to go to those schools. They were all rather good. I think my happiest period was actually at Churchward Valley Junior School. It was just sort of a great school. There was no homework there either. The only thing about the Boys Grammar School was homework. That seemed to spoil it.
And what were your favourite subjects?
History.
History.
Yeah, history and geography.
Yeah. So what happened then? You left school, and I think you said you had 27 years in banking, Barclays Bank.
Well, I worked at Barclays Bank for 27 years, and I'm still working for a bank. I'm working for a Swedish one now.
And you're semi-retired.
Yeah, work part-time now, 3 days a week, so that gives me more time to do music.
So when did the music start, Ian?
Well, actually learning to play the guitar started when I was 18. I think I was quite influenced by my classmates around me. Quite a few of them were starting to play in bands. It was the punk era, which was sort of quite a big influence on me. And I read an article by where Joe Strum was interviewed, and he said he learnt to play the guitar in his 20s. And I felt that I didn't have any musical talent, and it was too late for me to learn to play the guitar. But when I read that article, I suddenly thought, well, if he could do it, I could do it. And it did take me a long time to be able to master the instrument, but I really wanted to do it, so I kept on doing it. But at that period of time, I'd also become a bit fed up with history because I'd been studying, doing exams, O-levels, A-levels at school. By the end of school, I was fed up with studying and all the homework. I kind of regret that I didn't go to university, but looking back on it at the time, I just didn't feel like I could do any more studying. And then prior to sort of learning to play the guitar, my main sort of interest had been things like history and geography. But then music took over, and I didn't really sort of go back to reading history books until I was sort of in my mid-20s. And then at one stage, I think it was probably 15 years ago, I decided to try and write a song that was based around a historical subject. I think it was a song about the Battle of Hastings, which had always fascinated me. The most difficult thing I found about writing songs was trying to think of something interesting to write about. And as soon as I suddenly started writing songs based around history, I suddenly found it became easier and easier to write songs. And I've always tried to write songs, and seem to always been able to come up with interesting tunes. And sort of combining history with music has been like a great joy, really. And
you were saying as well, when we were chatting earlier, about you'd written some jingles and some comedy songs? Yeah,
there was a phase where you could get your songs played on podcasts quite easily. There was a website where you could upload your songs, and podcasters could select their songs from this website, and quite a lot of my songs got played, and from that I then started writing jingles, recording jingles for some of the podcasts and also local radio stations. So that was a little phase where I wrote quite a few jingles, and quite a lot of my songs were played on podcasts. But then this website where you could upload your songs, that was removed, and I think a lot of podcasts then sort of kind of faded away, and then it became more difficult to get my songs played on pod shows and local radio stations. So that was like a phase that I went through. I also went through a phase of writing cut a lot of comedy songs and a short little songs that were like comedy adverts. Like I'd make up a song about toothpaste, toothpaste for smokers. It was the song was called Faggin's Toothpaste, and in the song we cleaned our teeth. We called ourselves Cleaning Our Teeth, and it was done to like a hip hop sort of background music. So that was a little phase I went through, and then after I stopped, after like it was difficult to get your jingles played and songs played on podcasts, I think that was when I went into the more the history phase.
Which took us on then to Richard III.
Yeah, well that's when it really sort of like took off, when I watched the documentary about the discovery of Richard III's grave in the Leicester car park. That was just sort of like, so I remember watching that documentary. It was absolutely fascinating. The bit that really struck me was when they started to uncover the grave, and you could see the curvature of the spine, and you suddenly thought, oh blimey, what was said in Tudor times, it was actually true. He was a hunchback, although it turned out he wasn't a hunchback. He had scoliosis. That was a sort of like an illness I'd not heard of before. But having said that, since then I've found out that it's not so uncommon. Anyway, after watching that documentary, we with my friend Mike, we recorded a song about Richard III, and that seemed to go down quite well. And then we decided to do a whole album about Richard III, and I sort of felt that it might be an opportunity to reach a wider audience, because there are a lot of people that are interested in Richard III. I wanted to read some books about that king to give me some ideas for songs, and I thought I'll have a look on the internet. I couldn't get over the number of books that have been written about him, the number of novels that have been written about that king. It's like
and there's a Richard III Society.
There is, yeah. There seems to be that there's more books about Richard III than anything else, and I thought, oh, if we made an album of songs all about Richard III, we might be able to generate quite a bit of interest in our music, and it did.
Is that where the history, the kind of calling yourselves history? I know your friends know you as Ian of Churchward.
Well, it's not. That's like a silly stage name.
Yeah.
Like my friend Mike, he calls himself Lord Zarkwan, but he called himself that in a previous band. I think that's his influence coming through.
Right. It's quite fun though.
Yeah. So anyway, so we recorded one album about Richard III, and that went quite well. And as soon as we got it on like iTunes and Amazon, it started selling. So we thought, oh, we better do another one. So we did another one.
You've collaborated with people as well, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Was it Only Fools and Horses? I saw.
Well, I got asked to record an album by the Mortimer History Society. And I suggested that the gentleman that's approached me to record the album for that History Society. It was to commemorate their 10th anniversary, and I think he's the secretary. He's called Philip Hume. And I said to him, oh, perhaps what you could do is you could write some historical narratives to introduce each song. Because one of my previous Richard III albums, the second one, we got an author to write some narratives and to read them as Richard III's mother, and each narrative introduces each song on the album. It's a bit like a historical version of like Jeff Wayne, War of the Worlds,
oh, yes.
Where you've got like Richard Burton narrating it. Well, it was kind of like using that idea. So we thought with the Mortimer History Society album, we'd try and find somebody to read the narratives. And what I didn't realise at the time is that the actor that plays Boycie, John Challis, he's the patron of the Mortimer History Society. He actually lives in, his house is a former, I think it might be a former abbey that's related to the Mortimer family, So yeah, so we managed to get John Chalice to read the narratives, so that was quite good fun.
So bring us a little bit up to date. You came to the museum earlier this year.
Yes, my wife had started coming to quite a lot of the lectures at the Torquay Museum, so I started to come to some as well. And there was one that I found out about a pageant that was held in Torquay. I think it was in 1924, and I didn't know anything about that. And I thought, well, that would be rather interesting. So I actually came along to the lecture. David Hinchcliffe was the lecturer. He was a brilliant speaker, and I came away from it feeling totally inspired. And I thought, oh, I'd like to write a song about this pageant. So, and I talked about it with my wife Elaine, and she actually wrote she wrote a verse for one song and a verse for another song, and I kind of like finished off the lyrics, and we came up with 2 tunes. So there are actually we've recorded 2 songs about the Torquay pageant, and then I just thought, oh, I'd like to actually write some more songs about the local history in Torquay, and suddenly realised there's so many things of interest, like Napoleon on the Bellerophon in Torbay, William of Orange Landing at Brixham, Agatha Christie, so I basically wrote a lot of songs about Torquay and Torbay, which has been great fun.
It's the regatta in Torquay, the thought of it brings such glee, with yacht racing in the bay, money for the fair saves its made. On the switchback you'll lose your bearings, come and buy some dainty pairings, try your luck on the coconut chai, bid for nougat, please come and try. It's the regatta in Torquay, the thought of it brings such glee, the horses on the roundabout, the strangers shows without a doubt. Penny monkeys in every queue, in your coat with 1 or 2, can you pitch a ping pong ball, a goldfish prize for 1 and all? Out in the bay the yachts race by, from Holden Pier you can watch them fly, Britannia sided, up goes the cry, beneath the blue August sky. It's the regatta in Torquay, the thought of it brings such glee, with yacht racing in the bay, money for the fair saves its made, money for the fair saves its made, money for the fair saves its made.
Your songs was Arnold's White Feather. What's
Oh
that
yes,
about?
that's I didn't realise it. Apparently Arnold Ridley, who was the actor who played Godfrey in Dad's Army, he was actually for a while a teacher at Torquay Boys Grammar School. I guess that he'd been injured in the First World War in the Somme, which would have been 1916, and a lot of wounded soldiers came to Torquay to the to the hospital, like in the town hall. I think Torbay Mansions was a hospital. So I guess that when he'd been wounded, he came to Torquay to recover, and that's how he ended up as a teacher at Torquay Boys Grammar School. The song is basically about him being given a white feather by a suffragette, even though he was like basically a war hero. They would get the wounded soldiers were given badges that they could wear, so that they wouldn't get mistaken by people in the street, that they were actually trying to avoid going to the being signed up to go to the war. But Arnold wasn't wearing his badge; it was in his pocket, so he mistakenly got given this white feather. So the song's called Arnold's White Feather.
Fascinating.
The suffragettes are busy in the town of Torquay, handing out white feathers to the men that they see. Yes, handing out white feathers to the men that they see.
One of your songs was Arnold's White Feather. What's
Oh
that
yes,
about?
that's I didn't realise it. Apparently Arnold Ridley, who was the actor who played Godfrey in Dad's Army, he was actually for a while a teacher at Torquay Boys Grammar School. I guess that when he'd been injured in the First World War in the Somme, which would have been 1916, and a lot of wounded soldiers came to Torquay to the hospital, like in the town hall. I think Torbay Mansions was a hospital. So I guess that when he'd been wounded, he came to Torquay to recover, and that's how he ended up as a teacher at Torquay Boys Grammar School. The song is basically about him being given a white feather by a suffragette, even though he was like basically a war hero. They would get the wounded soldiers were given badges that they could wear, so that they wouldn't get mistaken by people in the street, that they were actually trying to avoid going to the being signed up to go to the war. But Arnold wasn't wearing his badge; it was in his pocket, so he mistakenly got given this white feather. So the song's called Arnold's White Feather.
Suffragettes are busy, the suffragettes are busy in the town, handing out white feathers, handing out white feathers to the men that they see. Yes, handing out white feathers to the men that they see. Mr. Hindenburg had to change his name, anti-German sentiment.
There's another one called Tool Station.
That's right, yes. I got the idea from that one from a book about the history of Torquay by Anne Bourne. Quite a lot of the songs on the Torquay pageant album that I've recorded, I got a lot of the ideas from reading her book. Tool Station was one of them. That's basically Tool Station was opened in 1848. And the song is just sort of like an account of the celebration that day to open the station.
Ridley was a teacher at a Torquay school, received a white feather, which was rather cruel, seen by a suffragette who wore a fox fur. His simple badge the opening of Tour Station, just below Chapel Hill, an event of celebration. The train arrived. applauded with due circumstance. Access to Torquay it would enhance, though difficulties were not foreseen. We celebrate the age of steam. The opening of Torbay Station, just below Chapel Hill, an event of celebration.
I think there was a bit of a disaster because the public that were there, they were so anxious to get a slice of the pudding. I think it turned into a bit of a free-for-all.
And there's another one called Torbay Station.
That's right. Yes, I got the idea from that one from a book about the history of Torquay by Anne Bourne. Quite a lot of the songs on the Torquay pageant album that I've recorded, I got a lot of the ideas from reading her book. And you know, Torbay Station was one of them. That's basically Torbay Station was opened in 1848. And the song is just sort of like an account of the celebration that day to open the station.
The opening of Torbay Station, just below Chapel Hill, an event of celebration. The train arrived, such a thrill, applauded with due circumstance. Access to Torquay it would enhance, though difficulties were not foreseen. We celebrate the age of steam. The opening of Torbay Station, just below Chapel Hill, an event of celebration. The train arrived, such a thrill. The Temperance Society band led a procession, I understand. Sergeant Boyd's buglers brought up the rear, the sound of the music a joy to hear. Sir John Yardborough gave an address. The whole event was a great success. Banners proclaimed Brunel's broad gauge, locomotives in the Victorian age. Station, just below Chapel Hill, an event of celebration. The train arrived, such a thrill, applauded with due circumstance. Access to Torquay it would enhance, though difficulties were not foreseen. We celebrate the age of steam. We celebrate the age of steam.
Torquay, there's a fabulous, a family, monument grave.
I've seen it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's another bit of, fantastic history in Torquay.
So, Ian, you were inspired by the pageant. So, what's inspiring you next? Do you think?
Well, I'm still inspired by the local history in Torquay, and there are 15 original songs on the Torbay pageant part 1 album, and I'm in the process of recording a part 2 album. So we finished 3 songs, which is the Torquay Pageant part 2. There's one about General Plumer, who lived at Mulpass Lodge in the Lincolns. He was an important general during the First World War, and I'd made the assumption that the generals in the First World War were absolutely clueless, but having researched him, he was actually a very, very good general, and his strategies were always well planned, and the song's called Strategies Well Planned, based around him. And there's a third song we finished, which is called The Drinking Fountains of Torquay, and that's basically based a lot of the information for the lyrics for that song is taken by a recent book by David Hinchcliffe, who's done a lot of research on the old drinking fountains around Torquay. And David was the gentleman who gave the lecture at Torquay Museum that inspired all the, me wanting to write these songs.
And so you very kindly donated the sale of the album to the museum.
That's right, yeah. Hopefully I can sell a few copies of the CDs, and whatever profit there is from selling the CDs, I'd like to donate it to the museum. Because I think with the lockdown situation where we've had with this awful coronavirus, it's been a struggle for the museum, and I'd like to be able to give something back, really.
Well, Ian, thank you so much for
It's
your
been,
time.
Yeah,
it's been fascinating.
Thank you.
There's
very
lots
much.
more I know that you can
Yeah,
tell
I could
us.
go on for ages.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
brilliant.
chatting to us
Thank
today.
you.